Hi, my name is Dan Gaylin. I'm President and CEO of NORC at the University of Chicago. We're a not-for-profit research institute that focuses on the full spectrum of human endeavor. So in the United States, there's an issue with a federated model. And the question is, how does a relatively diffuse federal government, in terms of its power, integrate data from many different sources when those sources have their own authorities for how they collect data, such as cities, states, even counties and the like. In terms of whether or not that's a problem that's faced here in Europe as well, I'd first state that I'm not really an expert on that, but I've been struck with some of the conversations I've had here today that the problems are more similar than they are different. I think that even when countries that we're very familiar with, our neighbor to the north, Canada, have a strong central government and the ability to, in theory, the ability to pull data together at a national level, there are often impediments, whether they're privacy concerns, concerns in the laws and the statutes that govern the way the data are collected, that make it bureaucratically difficult to use the data other than for very specific purposes for which they were created in the first place. NORC is doing a number of things to try and assist the federal government in addressing these challenges. One of the things we're doing, going back to the first question, is we're trying to help identify new methods and tools and ways to deploy existing data in effective ways that complement but do not represent a threat to the existing data systems that serve us well. Another thing that we're doing is trying to build up the capacity. So we spend a lot of time, the capacity in terms of the infrastructure as well as the workforce. So we spend a lot of time developing systems that will allow for processing of data in unique and different ways. We have a tool called the Data Enclave, which serves as a very secure environment in which data can be put together in different ways that otherwise it would be very difficult to do if you didn't have such a secure environment that focuses on avoiding disclosure. One of the issues that I touched on in my talk, which has become really a rallying cry for me and something that I'm very focused on, is the notion of data literacy. It's fine that we are all working so hard to continue to produce valuable statistics to help inform decisions of every type, whether that's policymakers writing a policy, or it's government staff trying to understand how well a program is working that they're running, or it's business people trying to run their businesses, or it's households trying to make the best decisions for their families. But the fact is that just generating the data isn't enough. We need to, and just visualizing the data or disseminating it in more effective ways is not enough. We need to ensure that the population has the tools and the knowledge to be informed consumers of data, and that's data literacy. You know, right now the consumer is bombarded with information. Everybody who has a mobile device, which is most people these days, is getting bombarded with information constantly. They need to be able to differentiate between which data sets are going to really lead them to good decisions and their most effective decisions, and which data sets could either purposefully or inadvertently lead them astray. So my big hope is that we, this community, the government, the private sector, and our educational system help develop tools for the general populace to be more able to use the information and the data that we produce. What I love about the Data for Policy Conference and conferences like it is that it represents a really nice combination of people who are working on the real nuts and bolts of how to do this stuff, as well as people who are asking the bigger questions of what does it mean to do this stuff and how will it actually create improvements. So we need more forums like this one. It's fascinating to me that this is only the second year of this one here in the European, or in the UK and among Europe. And while the States has many, many different types of data analytics conferences and sessions like that, there isn't one that's really focused directly on informing policy. So I think there's a lot to be gained from forums like this one, and I look forward to learning more in the rest of the conference today and to seeing what we can do about things like this in the US.